The sun hadn't quite climbed over the rooftops of Maple Creek, but already the air buzzed with that heavy August heat. Dust clung to the windows of Jim's Auto and Repair, swirling gently as a fan rattled in the corner, barely making a dent in the rising temperature. Inside, 23-year-old Nate Carson stood over a rusted-out pickup, grease smudged along his arms, sweat dripping from his temple. The sound of a wrench slipping, followed by a soft curse, echoed in the garage. It was just another Tuesday, until everything changed. Nate had never been the kind of guy to chase glory. He was steady, reliable. A guy who loved engines and knew how to listen, to machines, to people. He'd learned from his grandfather, who'd always said that fixing something broken was the closest thing to prayer he knew. Nate believed that. He also believed in helping people, even when nobody was watching. Especially then, that belief would cost him everything, or so he thought. It started with a soft knock at the edge of the garage bay. He looked up to see a tiny, silver-haired woman in a faded floral blouse holding a rickety bicycle with one wheel bent like a crumpled soda can. She couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds, and her hands trembled from arthritis or age or both. "Excuse me," she said in a voice like old lace. "I'm sorry to trouble you, but I can't get home." She told him her name was Mrs. Evelyn Harper, 81, walked 3 miles to the market every week on that same bicycle. Her only means of transportation. Today, it had given up halfway back. Nate glanced at the time, just past noon. Lunch break. He looked over his shoulder. His boss, Rick Doyle, was in the office, shouting into a phone about invoices. Nate had seen Rick send people away before. If they didn't have money, they didn't matter. That was Rick's golden rule. Still, Nate didn't hesitate. "Don't worry about it, ma'am," he said, taking the bike gently from her hands. "We'll get you rolling again." It took 20 minutes. The wheel was salvageable, just needed some alignment, a little welding. He replaced the brake line, tightened the spokes. He even oiled the chain. When he handed it back to her, Evelyn's eyes welled up with tears. "I don't have any money," she whispered. "But I can bring you my rhubarb jam next week. I make it every summer." "You don't owe me anything," Nate said, smiling. "Just get home safe." She touched his arm as if to memorize the moment. "You're a good man, son." And then she was gone, pedaling down the dusty road like a whisper on wheels. Rick found out before the wrench even cooled. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Carson?" he bellowed, storming out of the office. "She needed help," Nate said simply. "She needed a handout, and you gave it on my time, using my parts. That's theft." "I fixed a bike," Nate replied, stunned. "For an old woman who couldn't walk home." "That's not your call," Rick shouted. "You're not a social worker. You work for me. Or you did." And just like that, he was fired. No severance, no final check, just a hand-scribbled note saying, "Terminated," and a shove out the back door. Nate sat on the curb that afternoon, stained with oil, heart aching. He didn't regret what he'd done, but he did wonder what came next. His rent was due in 5 days. His truck was on its last leg. He didn't have backup, or connections, just principles. The sky darkened with evening, and still, he sat there. And then came the morning that turned everything upside down. Nate had just poured his cereal when he heard it, engines. Loud, multiple. He stepped onto the porch of his rundown duplex, spoon still in hand, and froze. 7 black SUVs, windows tinted like obsidian, rumbled onto the street and blocked his driveway like a presidential motorcade. Doors opened in unison, and out stepped men and women in sharp black suits. The kind you see in movies, not Maple Creek. Before he could even set his cereal down, a tall man in aviator sunglasses strode up the steps. "Nathan Carson." Yeah, I'm with the Evelyn Harper Foundation. We'd like a word." Nate blinked. "The what?" The man smiled. "Mrs. Harper didn't tell you who she was, did she?" It turned out Evelyn Harper wasn't just a sweet old lady with a rusty bike. She was the widow of Theodore Harper, founder of Harper Tech, a multinational tech conglomerate with ties to clean energy, AI research, and philanthropic development. Quietly, without media fanfare, she had devoted her years to building a foundation aimed at recognizing unsung heroes. People who did the right thing when nobody was watching. Evelyn hadn't forgotten Nate. She told her board, her lawyers, and her foundation. She told them that this moment, this act of kindness, was what the world needed more of. The next few hours were a blur. By noon, Nate had a full-time offer, not to fix cars, but to head a national outreach program for young mechanics in underserved communities. A 6-figure salary, full benefits. He was flown to New York 2 days later to meet with their board. At the airport, a small velvet box was handed to him. Inside was a silver pin, engraved with the word, integrity. The story hit the media like wildfire. Mechanic fired for helping elderly woman gets job offer from billionaire widow. There were interviews, offers, even a scholarship fund named in his honor. But none of it mattered as much as the handwritten letter he received from Evelyn Harper a week later. It read,